merged with the line art. So we're on to new projects. The first thing that I'm going to be working on is an ink Doctor Strange drawing that I wanted to do as a gift for my buddy Carl Altstetter. So I'm getting started with that. If I can find my little glove here, got it. I'm not so much worried about the screen getting smeared because I've got a screen protector on it. However, I noticed that when I'm wearing the glove, it's less likely to pick up stray marks from my hand if I rest my hand on the screen. Normally, if you're using the Apple Pencil, then it'll just detect the pencil and it'll ignore other contacts. But sometimes having my hand on there, if I rest my hand for too long, it'll pick it up. But the glove minimizes that. So what am I working on here? This piece. Ha! Trevor, first in the chat. Skull. How are you, sir? I am doing well. Diving into the first of my new projects. And this piece is an ink Doctor Strange piece that I'm doing. And because Doctor Strange grew out of Strange Tales, it's not like there were Doctor Strange issue 1s of later volumes. I did not know this. I was doing all this research, so I thought, oh, I'll just do the cover to the first issue of Doctor Strange. But, you know, Doctor Strange grew out of the comic book Strange Tales. And that, I think, started around 169, I think, was the first issue where they changed it over to Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange didn't appear on the covers of the previous issues. And I think by the time it got to 179, I don't think Ditko was even drawing it anymore. So I just went and I found the cover to the first Marvel Masterworks collection. And I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a reinterpretation of this Ditko drawing. So I just looked at it and I said, all right, how can I make this more my style, more, you know, just update it for me. If I were drawing this cover, how would I do it? And I don't feel bad or weird about doing that with somebody like Ditko because, you know, obviously Ditko's a genius. It's not like I'm saying, oh, I'm going to correct things and do things better than Ditko. No, it is definitely an homage using his idea and his composition and me just trying to draw it more in, not just in my style, but I figured if I just copied the exact composition but just redrew it, I felt like that would be a little boring. So I'm starting with the simple pose. And already with the pose that Ditko has here, I've already changed it where Ditko is, you know, Doctor Strange is looking more straight on at the camera. Whereas in the composition that I've angled his body so he's facing a little bit more to the left. And he's going to be, you know, looking at the tablet that he's got out there. But I'm keeping the pose. I'm also moving around some of the background elements. And I'm not going to use all of the background elements because this is going to be like a 9x12 piece. And I feel like there's a lot of empty space around here in terms of all these extra elements. What I'm going to do is just move them around until I feel like they fill up the space as much as I want it to. Like, I feel like if I make this mostly Doctor Strange and the tablet, and then draw the other pieces in around that, that will work for me. So I'm going to leave a little bit of extra space at the top as though this were the cover, even though it's not really going to be a cover. In fact, I'm thinking the more I look at this, the more I realize I don't really need to draw in. I think a lot of the background is going to be black, and I'm going to leave space for these weird psychedelic elements in there. And just so you know, the process for this is going to be that I'm going to do a digital layout. So right now, this is a digital thumbnail that I'm doing in Procreate. And I'm going to do this. After I figure out the composition, I'm going to come back and redraw it as digital pencils. And I'm going to print those pencils out like I do with my traditional comic book pages and ink ink a blue line of this drawing. Although I'm going to have to order a new printer because I learned an important lesson this week. My Canon printer crapped out on me, and I do not blame Canon for this because it is, I'm pretty sure, my fault in terms of what led to this. So for a while, I had been using ink that was that came from a company that just refilled cartridges that would fit Canon printers, but they were like about half the price in terms of the ink cost. And I thought, all right, well, that's great savings. I never really thought about whether the ink was poor quality because the print quality was fine. What I did not anticipate was Trevor says, "Ooh, taking on Ditko." Yeah, I mean, Ditko is it's gonna be challenging for me in the sense that Ditko is simpler. Well, you know what? It makes sense. I've been trying to move in sort of an Alex Toth simpler look, and Ditko, I think, is in that lineage in terms of using just the amount of lines that are necessary to tell a story. Like this image, the thumbnail image I'm using as reference, that cover, it's a complicated cover, but it's complicated because there's a lot of elements in the piece, not because the cover itself is hyper detailed. Each of the things in there is drawn rather simply and straightforward. But it is a good challenge for me. It's good to experiment. On the printer side, what I did not anticipate was the ink that I was using damaging the print heads, which are basically the nozzles that the inkjet ink gets squirted through. And I noticed that I was having problems. It was telling me that my print head was clogged, and the normal print head cleaning cycle wasn't doing it. And I took that print head out and I looked at it, and that thing was caked with ink. And I've had printers for several years where the nozzles get clogged. I've never seen something that was as caked as this. And like I said, I have been very, very happy with Canon printers, and I'm going to replace the printer I have with another Canon printer. But I really think that what led to this particular printer dying on me was the fact that the ink I was using was not the manufacturer's ink. I think that they formulate it so that it may get clogged over time, that the normal ink, the normal cleaning cycle of a printer will fix that. I think that's what Canon does. They expect if you're using our inks, well, the way we run it, it'll get clogged. You clean the print heads, it should be fine. This thing, nah, I tried cleaning them on my own, and mind you, print heads are very delicate, but I watched a couple of videos on how to clean them, and I tried it, and I still ended up destroying it, where now it just does not read at all as it having a print head in there. So the cost of a print head can be anywhere from $100 to $200, just looking online. And at that point, I might as well just get a whole new printer. So that is what I'm going to do. But I think going forward, I'd rather pay the premium cost of using Canon inks and keep a printer working longer, because it's a really good printer that prints a large format. It can print 11 by 17, so I can print out actual comic pages. Yeah, I know I'm going to be doing digital for a while. So why am I so concerned? Just because I'm going digital doesn't mean I don't want the ability to print out traditional comic pages if I need to. Who knows? Maybe I'll work on a project where I'm like, oh, I need to be able to do some traditional artwork here, or print out some traditional comic pages. So but I've learned an expensive lesson. I thought about getting an Epson printer because they have those eco tanks now, which are just like one big bottle. Like each color has like a bottle that you just refill, as opposed to changing out cartridges. And it sounds great, except for the fact that I have owned Canon printers before, and from what I have found, the problem I had, not Canon, I've owned Epson printers before, and the color quality is fantastic. I would say in terms of desktop printers, you can't beat that. You can't beat a Canon. But the problem that I always had with them still exists with the new printers, which is that if you don't use them on a regular basis, the it clogs up. The print heads clog up, and you have to do a deep printhead cleaning every single time you use it. So every time, if you're not printing every day, every time you use it, you've got to go back and go through like a 5 to 10 minute process of cleaning it and getting it ready to print. And that is why I stopped using Epson printers and switched to Canon. So the Canons seem to have a better reaction to being left unused for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months if I go without printing. Usually I can turn it back on and it'll still work just fine. So if you're wondering why I'm shilling for Canon, that's why. Ease of use. All right, so I started throwing some of these elements that are in the background, and you might wonder why I'm drawing this so small if I've got this whole sheet here. And actually, now that I look at this, I'm gonna move this horizontal just to take up the whole screen. So let me zap back out to the gallery. Let me just rotate this. Come back into here. And I'm sure there's a way to do this from within the canvas, but this just seems like I've looked, and I mean, something as stupid as just rotating your canvas, switching from horizontal, some vertical to horizontal, should be fairly simple. And it ended up seeming like it was a pain in the ass every time I did it. So just being able to zoom out, flip it, and zoom back seems easier. I guess there's some stray marks out here. Get rid of those. But I'm gonna move this because I want to do a few more thumbnails. Let's see here. Mighty Geek Studios, walking in the footsteps of the masters. I see. Yes, I am. I'm doing a piece from Ditko here. I'm reinterpreting the cover from the first Marvel Masterworks collection. So I am taking on the mighty Steve Ditko. I thought I had snapping on. There we go. Now the snapping does not see. Hang on, maybe I just need to have a finger on the screen while I do this, because normally I like things to just, you know, I don't care. It doesn't have to be exactly 90 degrees. It's just a reference image. So I'm just going to do a few more thumbnail variations until I feel super confident about this piece. Because I know the pose I want to use, but I'm looking at how much space there is around Doctor Strange. I'm like, do I really need all that space? And I say, nay. Nay, I say. So I'm just going to try a few more images. Screen over a little bit. That's an interesting thing I've noticed. I never even thought about that right now. I just looked at the fact that my ergonomics my hand is kind of pinched up between my body and the screen. Normally, I try to have my arms out a little bit. And it seems weird to me. I just realized that I'm just hunched up on the screen like that. I have to give myself a little bit of room. And I'm going even a little bit smaller because there's something about working really tiny that helps me just focus on what it is I'm doing at the thumbnail stage, rather. See here. Mighty Geek Studios says Steve Ditko understood that fans would try to copy his work and made it easy to do so. Well, I mean, that's something I was talking about earlier, in that I put Ditko in that camp with Alex Toth of just trying to get down to the essence of what do you need to tell the story, and that with this the background that's in the image I'm using for reference, there's a lot of stuff in there, so it looks like it's a complicated image, but all the stuff that's in there is very simply drawn. Now, I think what I'm going to try and do is I'm just trying to think now about like just large areas of black and white, and I'm actually imagining if the area around Doctor Strange is darkness with like stars and such. So now I'm thinking about what the black and white values of this piece are going to be. So the first pass was me just kind of working out the pose and the elements. But I think the only really elements that I want to keep in this image are the planets that are around his feet, the tablet in front of him. The rest of the stuff, I mean, I'm not particularly sure what a lot of this stuff is. It's like some weird scrolls and, multi-dimensional tubes and tunnels and such, and water dripping. So I think what I want to do with the other elements is I want to start bringing my own personal flavor to it. And that means, a little bit of experimentation. That's kind of what this next set of thumbnails is just me figuring out, well, what do I want to fill that stuff with if I'm not trying to draw exactly what Ditko drew? Yeah, I think just at the top, a lot of darkness to kind of give that sense. Of him surrounded by space, cosmic energy, and such. And now that I'm going in doing this thumbnail, I think I'm gonna take that tablet, which he already drew it, just kind of floating and at a weird angle. Like I can't even tell if this tablet's supposed to be curved or why it is that looks like it's a newspaper folded in half. Like it just goes to like one edge. The blue goes to one edge instead of the tablet being completely, that white border going all the way around it. But what I'm gonna do, I think, is make this thing angle it a little bit more so it's coming out at the viewer more. And I think I may make this black and come back in with white paint and paint runes and symbols on it. So yeah, at this stage, it's me really thinking composition, composition, composition. And even with mine, I kind of changed the flow of the cape, make it a little bit flowy-er, at least in this first thumbnail. Like if I come in here, switch this to some red. Compared to Ditko's original cape, I wanted to make this kind of sweep. Although I see I created a tangent there, so I'll have to fix that. But I'm just drawing in the silhouette of the cape here, just so you can see, compared to it mostly draping down and flowing a little bit at the bottom, I'm giving this almost like the Todd. It's not as wild as a Todd McFarlane cape. It's not gonna be like the cape from the movies, but I'm just giving it a little bit more fluid flow to go along with the pose. Like in his pose, in the original pose, he's standing sort of straight up, and I've got him a little bit more bowed, chest out. Go back to the black ink. Got his feet there. Got this plan. I think I may take some of the cosmic planets that are around the bottom and move those up and around. I may just take this large one, this planet that has planets within it. Take this one a little bit smaller. Maybe give it a little loop. See, that's the interesting thing here. I am not known for drawing weird, cosmic, psychedelic, trippy stuff. Whereas Ditko, for somebody who was as straight edge as he was, people always thought, wow, he must be incredibly high for drawing such weird, strange stuff, which, nah, he was super straight edge. But I guess I have to channel whatever it was that Ditko was able to channel in order to capture that trippy aesthetic. And I think I'm seeing something now. Like I'm noticing the way that he's got these little beams of energy moving in and out. And I can take advantage of that by using that as a visual lead to lead your eye through the page. Let's see. Mighty Geek Studios says, this particular cover was meant to showcase the mystery and how magic is meant to be astonishing. Said, you've captured the mystery. Now it's time to astonish. No pressure, Holmes. Yeah, go ahead. Just astonish. Just astonish. And Trevor says, the cover conforms to Ditko physics, a binary concept of artistic rules for the cartoonist. Now that is interesting. A binary concept of artistic rules. I would be curious to hear you if you've got more to say on that, because I've actually, I've never read any Ditko interviews, which I know he was notorious for not giving interviews and speaking publicly. But I'm sure there must be a few on the books where he talks about his process and his approach. I think for me, it's just a matter of figuring out how to lure in the strange in Doctor Strange, because I don't feel like this is that strange yet. Ooh, that is an idea. So he's wearing the Eye of Agamotto on his chest, but I'm wondering what it would be like if I put like a really cool third eye above him. That is a compositional element right there. And I've got all this energy. See, that's what I'm trying to. I didn't really figure out what my entry point into this cover was going to be, because I knew that I was not going to adhere to just redrawing it the way it was going to be. And I kind of figured I would just figure it out as I go along, not in terms of going along. Once I go to inking a page, I've pretty much committed to it. So for me, this thumbnail is all about me looking at different possibilities, trying out different elements, moving pieces around. I mean, I'm telling you right now that I've got this pose where I've got him angled a little bit facing more to the left. That may change in the time that it takes for me to finish these thumbnails. I may move these around. Because that's, to me, what the magic of the thumbnail stage is just going in and just moving stuff around, trying different things. And I think that I might need to put a little bit more white space around the iris, around the pupil, because I feel like that those lines I just put in are a little bit too. They're a little too much. Like, because having a little bit of white around that, around the pupil, now it's kind of wonky looking. What I want is for this pupil to be kind of beady-eyed, because having that thing like that little dot in the middle both draws the eye like a bullseye, because it's it's a little dot in the middle of a white area, but also by making it this small kind of isolated beady element, it makes it feel more alien. And I could make it feel more alien by just making it like a reptilian slit, but I think I want to try it out with this more humanoid eye first. And what I could do is have veins coming out from around the eyeball. Let's see. Mighty Geek says, now you're on the right track. He says it conforms to his philosophy via Ayn Rand about objectivism. He's telling a superhero story of man versus evil mysticism. Artistically, he's binary, only what you need to gain the storytelling point. See, okay, there you go. See, that makes sense to me. The binary being what is needed versus what is unneeded. Getting rid of everything else. Okay, see, that makes sense. That relates his style to his objectivism, which, I have still never read The Fountainhead, which I mean to read at some point, not necessarily because I'm into Randian philosophy, but just because it's recommended as a good book, whether you agree with it or not. And, I do find it interesting to read books and hear narratives from philosophical perspectives or ideals that I don't necessarily agree with, because I think that it widens one's perspective of the world. If anything, it makes you a better writer because you can write people that have different points of view than you have. So I guess for me, what I'm doing at this point is now I'm kind of anchoring the piece with these elements. By anchoring, I mean, if Doctor Strange as a figure is the main focal point, then what are the compositional elements that surround him in this piece? And I think that this tablet that I made is probably a little bit too much on Doctor Strange. If anything, I need to move it to the right, to the left a little bit more. Because I really like the compositions I got of the first drawing of the figure. That I'm happy with. Now it's just a matter of putting in other elements that complement the pose that's in the first thumbnail I did. Let's see. Trevor says, black and white as creative storytelling standards. Yes. I do want to go back and look at some old black and white comics. I have not looked at a ton lately. And I'm also wondering, maybe going forward when I start doing digital comics, if I do very simple colors and maybe the digital versions are in color and the print versions will be in black and white, just to save on print costs, to be able to make the book available at a low cost. Or hell, maybe I'll do a black and white version and a color version. Just have it there for people who want a cheap read versus people who want the color version. And as I'm looking at this eye, I'm thinking, honestly, it is a Ditko piece, but in terms of the weird, the strange, as it were, I think that I'm more in line with Kirby than I am with Ditko. And I feel like that might be something that I'm channeling now in terms of just this weird energy that's I'm going to have coming off of the eye. Now this is starting to feel a little bit more psychedelic. And I can even have this energy coming down and almost ringing Doctor Strange's cape like a halo of energy coming down on him. Those things that flare out from his collar. Let's see here. Mighty Geek says, each of the surrounding elements gives you a clue about the story itself. And Trevor says, remove everything that detracts from clarity. Read The Fountainhead first. As an artist, I enjoyed his clarity better than Atlas Shrugged. He said, you just got that awesome Toth book. He says he's an absolute master of black and white. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to digging into that. It's weird. Normally, because I have such little time to create, my pile of stuff to read just tends to build up and build up and build up. But lately I've been taking a little bit more, I think because Morningstar, wrapping it up here, I'm giving myself a little bit of time to actually enjoy, recharge my batteries, take in some new content. I've been reading a little bit more and I've been watching some TV actually, which I normally don't do. I started watching Ghost in the Shell standalone complex because I love Masamune Shirow's comics work. You know, Appleseed and Ghost in the Shell, Dominion. But when the theatrical version of Ghost in the Shell came out, for some reason I've only watched it once. So who knows? Maybe if I went back, it might have a better effect on me. But I really it was a little bit too heady for me. And the TV show feels a lot more straightforward. It almost, it's just a crime procedural with a lot of science fiction elements in it. Yeah, I think that I'm going to go with the eye above. So that's what's going to replace the indicia, not the indicia, but the logo and the masterwork pinup, all that stuff that's above. I'm just going to replace that with this giant glowing eye floating in space. But I've been watching more TV than usual, and I know I have a ton of books to read, including that Toth book, but I could not help but start reading Ed Brubaker's Friend of the Devil, because that just came out, and I love the Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips comics. Like, in terms of creative teams, what I love about them, I've only read like one volume of Criminal. I've read all of Kill or Be Killed, and I've read the first volume of Fatale, and a long, long time ago. Oh wait, no, I've also read the Fade Out. So I've read a lot of their work, and a long time ago I read Incognito too. The thing that I love about the Phillips Brubaker combination, and I should read some of the work that Ed Brubaker has written with other creators, but with the team of Phillips and Brubaker, the thing that I love is that it's hard to tell where the artist ends and the writer begins. I mean, even though I make comic books as both writer and artist, generally comics are a collaborative medium. And the strongest collaborations work seamlessly. And I think that is what fascinates me about the Brubaker Phillips team, is that when I look at the way that the dialogue is done and how it complements the artwork, it's like there are decisions there that I can't imagine how that dialogue was written to go with that art so well. And it's hard to even see, like, they go together seamlessly in a way. It looks like it was made by one person, even though it was made by a team. And I think that's what is fascinating to me about them. They complement each other extremely well. So whenever they have something coming out, if I don't read it right away, I at least put it on my to-read list. Like, I still haven't read Pulp. And I mean, hell, I'm doing a Western. That book was a Western. But I said, nope, got to finish Morningstar. And I think now that it's done, my brain has said, it's like it's taking a big sigh and saying, all right, why don't you enjoy a little bit of life? Why don't you enjoy some of the stuff that you have been passing by for ages now because you've been so focused on getting the story done? Yeah, I know. It's not in print yet. I got to get that done. It's coming. It's coming. I'm not going to say that I'm going to have all the pages out this weekend, because even after I get it printed, I'm going to share it with my patrons on Patreon, have them check for typos. I mean, not just that. I'm going to give it to them because, hey, they've been supporting me. But they are going to get to read it first. And I'll probably wait a week or two just to see if anybody has any feedback or catches any glaring errors that I need to fix before sending it off to the printer. Then I'll get that off to the printer, and then I'll start working on the trade for the second volume, assembling all of the artwork. And meantime, you're going to get to watch me just do a bunch of drawing experiments. Let's see here. Mighty Geek says, I enjoy black and white comics. And Trevor says, check out Ditko black and white done for the Ditko black and white done for Warren books. He really had a unique approach there. Mighty Geek also says, Shiro is a master of philosophical storytelling. And Trevor says, I wish there was a Ditko Toth collaboration. That would have been awesome. Well, it's interesting because I figure, what was it that I was reading? Al Williamson, he's somebody who I read that 50 Girls 50 collection, the EC collection of Al Williamson's work. Is it Williamson or William? No, it's Williamson. Williamson, he had a lot of his work inked by other creators sometimes. Frazetta inked a bunch of, I don't know if it was a ton, but he inked a few stories in the collection that I had, and I know they had worked on some other stuff. So it was nice to see the combination of both the Williamson work and seeing Frazetta's finishes. It wasn't even inks, I think it was finishes. But Roy Crinkle, I think, did a few stories. Whereas with Ditko, I don't know how much he collaborated with other people in terms of finishing other people's work or doing pencils for someone else to finish. And given his objectivist personality, I would have to imagine he seems like the type of guy who would not want somebody finishing his work. He seems like the type of guy who's like, if I'm starting it, I'm finishing it. So I don't know. Other than collaborations with writers, I don't know how many artistic collaborations Ditko did with anybody. But I am not a Ditko scholar. The most that I've ever done was I sat down and I read the first 20 odd issues of Spider-Man. I got the Spider-Man Marvel Masterworks so I could read. It wasn't even the Masterworks. It was the thick phone book size black and white editions that Marvel do. Because I really prefer those, so I can see the pencils and inks. And I read the first 20-something Spider-Man issues because I had never read them. I'd never read the early Ditko and the early Lee stuff. And it's funny how much of it, like all of the stuff that we see in later years, like the Sinister Six, Kraven's Last Hunt, even though Mary Jane doesn't pop up until like the very end, like so much of what we think of as Spider-Man like really was there from the beginning. It's not like one of those things where the character kind of found himself over years. I mean, yes, I'm sure I haven't read a lot of the Romita senior years Spider-Man stuff, but it feels to me like what we know of as Spider-Man, all of the tropes of his canon, were kind of like just there from the start. And I find that fascinating. So let's see. Jay King is in the chat. Says, "What's good, brother and people? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. It is all good. Morning Star is finished, and I am doing a Doctor Strange piece based on the cover for the first Doctor Strange Marvel Masterwork. So I'm sort of taking that cover and reworking it into something that's a little bit more my style." Trevor says he finished inks an issue of Supernatural Law with Bat and Lash, Supernatural Law 27. You know what? Now that you say that, I think that that time that we talked when I had you on the stream, I think you may have told me that. So that's my my foggy memory right there. So thank you for bringing that up. You can learn us comic history Philistines. But yeah, there's a lot of creators like that who I know their work. I know that as somebody who is making comics, I should take the time to go and study their work, and it's just a matter of finding the time to do it. Like another one is Joe Kubert. I've only the only Kubert work I've actually read is one of the later. He did an army story that DC published, and it wasn't Sergeant Rock, but it was a story about they're about set in Vietnam. And I don't remember the details of it. I still have the book. I only read it once. And it was done sort of a different style than his typical sequential work. And I think I've read that one and his Facts from Sarajevo graphic novel. But in terms of like his Sergeant Rock, his Doctor Strange, all that work, I have yet to read and dive into those. So guys like Carmine Infantino. And you know, speaking of John Romita Sr., yeah, I've only read a little bit of his work. Maybe like one or two reprints here and there. And there's tons of great creators from Marvel and DC history who I am aware of, and I know that it's a blind spot in my creative education that I haven't gone back and studied their work. So it's sort of like I just, whenever I can make time, I'll try to slip back, like I'm doing with Toph, going back and looking at Bravo for Adventure. It's just, hey, I love Alex Toth. I see how powerful storytelling is, and I want to dive in and get myself educated. Looking at Masters of the Form to help inform my work. Let's see. Jay King says, proud of you. I believe that's for finishing Morningstar. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Trevor says, I'm a font of useless knowledge. Man, see, that's the thing, though. We never know when those little bits and pieces of knowledge and trivia or knowing where something came from and being able to make inferences and references are going to pay off and help us make better work. So I do not think that that information is useless at all. I think that that is incredibly powerful, useful information. Pardon me, gotta blow my nose a little bit. Seems like allergy season never ends for me anymore. Wow. It always seems like this time that we spend together goes by so fast. I can't believe it's already been almost 50 minutes we've been on. So right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what elements I want to work into the transition between the upper point of the image and the lower point of the image. So I definitely wanted the top to be more like darkness and stars, and I kind of want to have that creep into the bottom, but I feel like there should be some sort of transition into this lower area. And I have to figure out what I want that transition to consist of. And I could just go old-fashioned and just give it some curvy crackles. In fact, I think that might be the way to go. I can tell you this, though. When I come into doing the final composition, I'm going to base it off of this first pose because the flow of the figure is so much better. So it's going to be just a matter of moving that and then adjusting this tablet so it still fits into that, and then filling in these additional elements around that, around the pose on the tablet. Because that's the thing. I look at this, and even though Doctor Strange is drawn, you know, he's large, he's the thing that's in full color. Everything else is kind of knocked back in terms of, you know, pastel or light or dark, but less vivid colors than the Doctor himself, because the Doctor is the main figure in this. But in terms of compositional space, he's taking up, you know, well, I mean, he's taking up a good third of the image, and I feel like I wanted to just, because I'm doing it in black and white, and it's not going to, you know, I'm not going to have the benefit of color. I want the I want the composition to not get muddy in the sense of I don't want it to lose him as the force that this composition is built around. So I want to try and design this so that the elements pull the reader into Doctor Strange. Now, I'm not going to go nuts with this because, you know, it's kind of a one-off piece. But if I were going to do a ton of Doctor Strange, what I would probably do is I would start looking up visual optical illusions. And I would try to find a way to put as many optical illusions into the piece as possible. And that would become like a thing for me. It's like I would just say, all right, anytime I'm using Doctor Strange, there's going to be an optical illusion in the piece. Like if I were doing Doctor Strange cover artist, I would try to make each cover an optical illusion of some kind. Like sort of an MC Escher-esque thing. Okay, so this is what I was thinking about for the book here, is to try and... So he's got, if I go back to this thing, he's got a little bit of energy coming out of that tablet. What I want to do is have energy flowing in towards Doctor Strange. And have that energy flowing into the tablet. I imagine that I am probably not going to do that with a brush if I want it to feel nice and crisp. Of course, maybe it feels a little bit too crisp. And if I want it to feel more organic, that's another thing to think about. Do I want these bolts of energy to feel like... Originally, when I started drawing this in, I was thinking kind of like Darkseid's Omega beams or Omega effect, where it's like it's going forward and zipping around elements in this image. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, maybe this should be more organic and soft and looping around through. So let's see here. Mighty Geek says, pull some elements from Morningstar. He said the cover of the second issue of Morningstar had similar elements to it. Huh. Let's see here. Issue 2 cover. Well, it's got Remiel kind of standing in sort of a foresty thing, you know, covered in blood, holding a shotgun. I don't know. I might be able to pull something in from there. But that said, I kind of want this to feel more Doctor Strange. It's not like I have anything against putting in like Morningstar Easter eggs, but I would rather it be like, oh, I found a good spot for it, than me trying to craft the piece specifically to have Morningstar Easter eggs. Let's see here. Trevor says, I've amused myself for weeks thinking about a time when Ditko and the computer would have met and what he would have done with that tool. Well, I mean, considering the fact that a lot of old school creators, and hell, not even old school, creators are maybe only 10 years older than me, who are like, man, I don't even like the most they know of the computer is knowing how to use Photoshop to scan stuff in. They're just like, not into it. Whereas you also look at somebody like Glenn Keane, who's drawing animation completely in the virtual world. If you guys have not seen that, do a YouTube search for Glenn Keane VR. It is a trip. Watching him drawing animated figures in a virtual space, that looks like some Doctor Strange shit. And he is definitely old school, but he's embraced new technology. So I think that it's, it might be presumptuous of me to assume that Ditko would reject working digital. Perhaps digital might be perfect for him with his rather binary views. So, hell, maybe. I mean, you look at somebody like Brian Boland, who, definitely not, wasn't, not, a generation. I'm not sure how much younger he is than Ditko would be, were he's still with us. But, I don't know how much of Boland's moving to digital was he moved to digital and then it became convenient for him because he has vision problems, or whether the vision problems led him to working digital. But either way, he's another guy who embraced digital early on and does some amazing work with it. I mean, I can't tell the difference between his digital work and his traditional work. I'm sure people who are real eagle-eyed Brian Boland fans probably could, but I cannot. So let's see here. Mighty Geek says, look how those elements enhance the composition. Martin's in the chat. Hey, Martin, how's it going? I'm sitting here. I'm doing a Steve Ditko piece, and these are the thumbnails for it. I'm going to print out a blue line, and I'm going to do a more detailed layout drawing, then print that out on blue line and ink it traditionally. But I'm interpreting, this is the cover to the first Marvel Masterworks, the first collection of Doctor Strange, which, I was saying at the top that I was not aware that Doctor Strange grew out of the comic Strange Tales, and they switched it over from Strange Tales to Doctor Strange around, I think it was issue 169. So there is no volume 1, issue 1 of Doctor Strange. There's other Doctor Strange issue 1s, but in terms of the Ditko's run on it, and like I said before, I'm pretty sure that by the time it's like, I think Ditko drew the early Doctor Strange stories, but by the time Strange Tales switched over to Doctor Strange, I think Ditko's run was already done. And I don't say that because I am a Ditko historian or a Doctor Strange historian. That was just something I was coming across when I was trying. My original intent was just do the cover to Doctor Strange issue 1. And then when I looked up, I found that is easier said than done. So I think that these tendrils of energy coming out of the tablet are not quite they're not landing the way that I want them to, and I'm gonna have to come in here and refine those a little bit. I think everything else in this piece seems to be working the way I hoped it would. Although one of the things I was also going to do is there's some tendrils coming out of this planet here that are a little bit hairy. And I was going to try and have this planet grow tentacles almost like it's like a venom symbiote. Let's see here. Trevor says Ditko loved his tech. He said, those that embrace the future live in it. Ayn Rand quote. Or Ayn Rand. Martin says Strange Tales. Yes. And Trevor says that that Ditko was just out of comics at the time the tech was ready. Yes, that is unfortunate timing. See, Mighty Geek says the tablet is a sentient being. Whoops. That is an interesting idea. Tablet as sentient being. You know what? I think that I'm getting a little bit too caught up. Like I'm just sitting here and I'm sort of noodling these little tendrils of energy. And what I'm really thinking is I'm going to take a step back. And the point of thumbnails is to think about composition. So what I want for what I want these tendrils of energy to be is an element that leads the eye into the piece and towards Doctor Strange. So I'm going to draw just a simple grid which does that. It leads in and then up, then in some more. And then now that I've got this simple grid in there, I can try and move the tendrils along these axes. I can move this over and down. Maybe make this brush a little bit bolder so I can just come in here and do big chunky lines. Try not to get caught up in the details, because that happens a lot. I get in there and I start moving something around. I'm like, oh, well, let me make it like this. Let me add that little flourish. And that can be distracting. Actually, that looks pretty cool. Like if instead of making it lines of energy, if I make it like black ink that's just pooling out. I mean, now it looks like the thing is bleeding, but I can always come into it and put some light into there. Or I could just make them tentacles that turn into energy when they, that's an interesting idea. Tentacles that turn into energy when they reach the tablet. That Mon Frères sounds weird. And it sounds strange. See what I did there? See what I did there? Yeah. Mighty Martin says, I love Michael Golden's Doctor Strange as well. I have heard great things about about Michael Golden's Doctor Strange, but I have not read any of that run. I think I've maybe read like a Michael Golden Doctor Strange story that was reprinted in Marvel Fanfare, which my understanding is Marvel Fanfare was just inventory stories that they just decided eventually to burn off and publish. They didn't need them to be in inventory anymore. But that said, I think most of the Michael Golden stuff I've read was either his run on the NAM or not Micronauts. There's something else of Michael Golden. I mean, Michael Golden is one of those creators. I know his work. I know his impact on the comic industry. I know his influence on a lot of creators like Art Adams, for instance. But that said, most of the stuff of Michael Golden's that I've read have been like a Batman story here, a Doctor Strange story there. When I did a deep dive on wanting to read the NAM, that was probably the most Michael Golden that I'd ever read. And the stories themselves were great, but I think after the first 20 odd issues, or however many Michael Golden did originally, it started to lose me a bit narratively. Like, well, artistically, I wasn't as into it. But you know what? I have to add that to my to read pile. Is Doctor Strange run, I mean. So right now, these are tendrils that look more like blood. So I think if I want them to feel like tentacles, I'm gonna have to come in here and thicken them up as they go off of the screen. And I'm also gonna have to add little suction marks. Now I'm probably gonna have to soften this up a little bit. Let's see here. Martin says, I like the Eye of Agamotto in the thumbnail. He says, thank you, thank you. That was the big, like, when I had started the thumbnail that's on the left, the first thumbnail was my first pass, and then I was trying to work out the values. And that was my big breakthrough in this piece. And I think that's the big, I guess, contribution, as it were, that I'm making to this reinterpretation, is putting a larger version of the Eye of Agamotto floating above him. And I know I might be saying it wrong because some people say Agamotto, some say Agamotto. I don't recall what the exact proper pronunciation is, and I am a lazy fanboy in that it's fine with me. Like, I really, most of my Doctor Strange experience is the Doctor Strange movie. I still haven't even read the Doctor Strange Doctor Doom combo, which is supposed to be one of the best Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom stories ever told. So when I do get around to reading some Doctor Doom, I think that's Mike Mignola. I forget who the writer is, but if I do get around to reading some Doctor Strange, that's probably where I'm going to start, because that I believe it's called Torment, and that's just because that's been so highly recommended as one of the best, more for Doctor Doom, honestly, than Doctor Strange. But I figure a great Doctor Doom story, and I haven't read a ton of Doctor Doom, just some old Fantastic Four issues. It's supposed to be a great story about Doom. It's Mignola art. It sounds like a win-win to me. So now I'm just trying to vary the thickness of the tentacles, making the center one a little thinner, the ones on the outside a little bit larger. And then I'm just going to come in here and a little bit of dotted dot, dot, dot. And this is more to just indicate it turning into light energy as it gets. Let me zoom back out. I want these things to turn into light as they get onto the, well, see that transition from dark to light? I don't know if it really works. What I wanted was to have these things turn into light as they reach the tablet. Because I don't want it to look like it's just blood. But that transition looks really weird. Let me see what happens if I just erase this and then just have it. Assuming I've got these energy lines up here, if I just have them turn into energy lines when they reach the tablet. Maybe that works. Let's see here. Yeah, Trevor says there's a Mignola, yeah, the Mignola Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange that I was just talking about. Martin says, I appreciate how you place your blacks in the composition. And Trevor says, use a color hold. Well, that's the thing. This isn't going to be a digital piece or a colored piece. This is going to be just a black and white ink piece. And that's actually, in Trevor saying, I appreciate how you place your blacks in the composition. That is the reason why I'm being so thoughtful about the blacks, is because it's only going to be this one. I'm working on this digitally. I'm going to print it out in blue line and ink it traditional. So that's all it's going to have is the black and white. Therefore, I'm being very judicious about using black as or not judicious, but I'm being thoughtful about how I am using black as a compositional tool, because color is an extremely powerful compositional tool, but I'm not going to have color in this piece. So I think what I'm going to do is just have these tendrils flare out like that. And I think I may come in here and add some like this. So just the idea of suggesting that these are tentacles, so that when they fade out into to energy like that, or they're getting sucked in, hopefully the effect will be that it'll just feel that much more weird. It'll feel that much more strange. That they're transitioning from tentacles to objects of energy. So I think compositionally, I've got everything in this that I want. The last thing that I need to work out in here is I'm wondering if I should have more of these tendrils that are underneath the cape, just to kind of help visually separate the space that is Doctor Strange from the space behind him. Now they don't feel so much like weird tentacles as much as they feel like a pattern of space and time. Maybe I'll erase one of these. Actually, just move this over a little bit. Yeah, that works. So yeah, that's how long it takes me. It takes me about an hour to work out a thumbnail for a piece. I try not to just, some people can make it all up on the page, but for me, the thumbnailing is just essential. This is the thing that I love doing the most. I try to be very thoughtful about it in terms of like the elements I put in and what I work out. Because for me, I mean, depending on whether you're watching this on your phone or a desktop, this can look incredibly small, but I will zoom out like this far and say, does the composition still read to me? And actually, when I zoom out like this, I realize, well, no, I think that works. It just helps me take a good look and say, all right, well, what do I need to be aware of when I'm actually inking this? And I think that when I do that, it tells me that I actually don't need these tentacle marks in there. Or if I do, I should make them very thin and very light so that they almost are subtle, like as if they're gray on black. Maybe I'll just do them with a little bit of colored pencil, but I feel like those lines might actually be distracting from the piece. And that goes back to the Ayn Randian, Ditkosian. That sounds nice, Ditkosian. Idea of cutting it down to just what it needs for the bare minimum, the essentials to tell the visual story I'm telling. Because when I zoom out, those little marks really just become an irritation. So I think I've got my composition. And let's see here. I'm Trevor's like white Zipatone. Yeah, that's true. Could try some white Zipatone. Amar says, "Hey, Jeremy, thanks for dropping in, Amar. We're wrapping it up here." Martin says, "Zips are excellent. Does Jeremy use zips? I've never used zips before, and I would have to go and find some, purchase a set. But I mean, for me, I'm trying to design this such that I can do the whole thing with just brushes, which, by the way, Trevor, this will be a chance for me to break out. I got my my set of Winsor Newton Series 7s. After that conversation we had, you sold me on giving them a try. So I got these babies here. I think I may break them in on this piece. So in fact, who knows? I'm trying to decide. I may ink this piece. I may save the inking for it for next week's live stream and work on other stuff throughout the week, just so that I can let you guys see the development of this piece. But Martin says the composition still reads. That is good. That is very, very good news, because that's the most important thing. Is that's the reason why you do thumbnails, to work out your composition. So the next step for me, which I will probably work on throughout the week, is just me drawing this, tightening up the details at 9x12 so I can print it out. Basically, I'm going to do digital pencils. So just cleaning up this drawing and make sure all the elements where I want them to be in proportion so I can print it out in blue line. And yeah, so I think that's going to wrap us up for this week. Okay. Trevor says, "Welcome to next level of inking." All right, man. Well, hey, you've sung the praises of the Series 7. You sold me on it, and I'm looking forward to breaking those bad boys in. So again, everybody who's been hanging out here, commenting in the chat, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining me week in, week out. I appreciate it. For those who want to support this channel, get an additional monthly bonus live stream. This the past few months we've been doing art book study group, and we have been doing the Art of Animal Drawing by Ken Holtgren, and we just go through page by page, and I just sit down, I draw for them, do studies, I talk about my observations, what I learn. It's basically my process for learning and teaching myself. So you get all of that at patreon.com/GERIMI. It's patreon.com/Jeremy. If you'd like to get my monthly newsletter, newsletter.jeremy.net. I've already got this month's queued up, so if you want to get that, you better sign up fast. I post pages of Morningstar from the older chapters on there. I also post some of the work in progress gifts that I share on social media, along with little writings about more of the behind the scenes, what's going on. Oh, something else I put on there is my media diet, what I'm reading, what I'm watching, so on and so forth. You get all of that delivered to your inbox once a month. And you also get a free digital sketchbook. Let us not forget the digital sketchbook. Definitely check that out. Newsletter.jeremy.net. And finally, Amazon.jeremy.net. Get physical copies of Morningstar Volume 1, Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, Told as a Western. Why is my ring light? Oh, because I've still got, actually the ring light shouldn't have, it doesn't matter whether I'm big or small. Actually, yeah, I can move this so it's not right in front of the ring light. But I've probably got a ring light up here to try and get the lighting a little bit better. Morningstar, Volume 1, contains issues 1 through 4 of Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, Told as a Western. My first graphic novel, self-contained psychological thriller, Eye of the Gods. It's about a man cursed with visions he cannot control, hence all the eyeballs. All right. Oh. Again, everybody who joined in, thank you for all the great comments and conversation, hanging out. Trevor says, practice thin lines with the number, making thin lines with the number 3. I'll give that a shot. Help develop my sensitivity and touch. So guys, thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. I don't say it enough. Like the videos, share them, subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you know somebody who you think would enjoy this, forward it to them. Please do. I appreciate you guys helping to spread the word. That's it for now. Go be creative.